My name is Ethan Hayes. I'm 24 and I live in a small studio apartment just outside Nashville, Tennessee. It's nothing special. One room with a kitchenette that barely fits a hot plate. A bathroom the size of a closet and a window that looks out onto the back of a laundromat. The rent's cheap and that's what matters. I don't have a steady job, not in the traditional sense. I do whatever needs doing around town. Mowing lawns, patching roofs, cleaning gutters, hauling junk. Anything that pays cash and doesn't require a tie. My truck is a 2003 Ford Ranger with rust spots on the fenders and a toolbox bolted into the bed. That's my office, my ride, my life. Most days blend together. I wake up at 6, grab coffee from the gas station on the corner, and check the corkboard at the hardware store for flyers. People post all kinds of odd jobs there. Someone needs a porch painted. Another wants their garage organized. I rip off the tabs with phone numbers and make calls. It's not glamorous, but it keeps the lights on and the truck running. I don't have a girlfriend. Don't have plans for the weekend. Just me, the open road between jobs, and the hum of the radio playing whatever country station comes in clear. That Thursday started like any other. The air was thick, humid, even for late summer. The kind that sticks to your skin and makes every breath feel heavy. I'd finished a small gig in the morning, trimming hedges for an old lady who paid me in lemonade and a $20 bill, and was killing time at the hardware store when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but cash is cash. Hello. A woman's voice, calm and direct. I saw your ad at the store. Looking for someone to clean up a backyard. Nothing professional, just reliable. Can you come by this afternoon? I glanced at the clock. 2:30. Sure. What's the address? She gave it to me. A street on the edge of town. The kind with older houses and big yards that haven't been touched in years. 3 o'clock work. I'll be there. I hung up, grabbed a bottle of water from the cooler, and headed out. The drive took 15 minutes, winding past cornfields, turning gold, and subdivisions that all looked the same. The house was at the end of a cul-de-sac, a modest white farmhouse with peeling paint on the shutters, and a white picket fence that leaned like it was tired of standing straight. The front yard was neat enough, but the backyard visible through a gap in the fence looked like a jungle. Weeds up to my knees rose, bushes gone wild with dead blooms, and a trellis sagging under vines that had long since given up. I parked the truck, grabbed my gloves and pruning shears from the toolbox, and walked up the path. The porch steps creaked under my boots. I knocked twice. The door opened almost immediately. She stood there framed in the doorway like she'd been waiting. Sophia. I didn't know her name yet, but that's what she'd say later. Mid-30s, maybe 38, with light brown hair pulled back in a loose knot and eyes the color of storm clouds, gray, blue, sharp, but not unkind. She wore a white linen shirt sleeves rolled to the elbows and khaki pants that looked soft from too many washes. No makeup, no jewelry except a thin silver watch. She didn't smile, but she didn't frown either. Just looked at me like she was sizing up whether I'd waste her time. You're the guy from the ad. Ethan. Yeah, that's me. She nodded once it stepped aside. Backyards through here. Fences falling apart. Roses are dead. Grass is a mess. Do what you can. I'll be inside. No small talk, no offer of water. I liked that. I followed her through the house. A quick glimpse of hardwood floors, books stacked on a side table, a kitchen with blue tiles, and the faint smell of coffee. She pointed to the back door. Tools are in the shed if you need them. Pay in cash at the end. Got it. I stepped out onto the small patio. The yard wasn't huge, maybe a quarter acre, but it had been neglected for seasons. The fence white pickets, once now gray and splintered, sagged in the middle where a post had rotted through. Rose bushes climbed wildly over a trellis that looked one strong wind away from collapse. Grass and weeds fought for space, and in the corner, a bird bath lay cracked on its side. It wasn't a disaster, but it was the kind of yard that told a story someone had loved it once, then stopped. I started with the obvious pulling weeds by hand, piling them in the wheelbarrow I'd found rusting behind the shed. The sun beat down, sweat soaking through my t-shirt. Flies buzzed around my head. I lost track of time, focused on the rhythm. Yank toss, The trellis was worse than it looked. Vines had woven through the wood like fingers pulling it apart. I'd need to cut them back carefully or risk the whole thing crashing. An hour in the back door opened. I glanced up, expecting her to check progress or tell me to wrap it up. Instead, she carried 2 glasses of lemonade ice clinking against the sides. She set one on the patio table, the other in her hand, and walked over to where I was kneeling by the roses. "You always work alone like this." I straightened, wiped my forehead with the back of my glove. "Pretty much easier that way. No one to argue with." She handed me the glass. Condensation dripped onto my fingers. "Cold. Welcome." I drank half in one go. She sipped hers slowly, eyes on the fence. "I hired you because yesterday I looked at this thing and thought, how long have I let everything fall apart without anyone to help fix it?" I wasn't sure if that was a question or a statement. I set the glass down, nodded toward the sagging post. "Fence post is rotted. I can brace it temporary, but it'll need replacing eventually." She didn't respond to that, just stared at the fence like it held answers. "Then take your time. There's another glass inside if you need it." She turned and went back in the screen door, slapping shut behind her. I watched for a second, then got back to work. The lemonade sat cold in my stomach. A small kindness in a day that had been nothing but heat and dirt. By 5:30, the yard looked better. Weeds gone. Roses pruned back to something manageable, trellis stabilized with wire I'd found in the shed. The fence still leaned, but it wouldn't fall tonight. I packed my tools and knocked on the back door. Sophia appeared, a wad of cash in hand. She counted out 80s more than I'd quoted on the phone. "For the extra time," she said. Then, almost as an afterthought, "Tomorrow, same time, the lavender needs trimming, and I think the bird bath can be saved." I hesitated. The job was mostly done, but the cash was good, and something in her voice, quiet, not pleading, made me nod. "Sure, 3 o'clock. She handed me the money, our fingers brushing for a second. "See you then." I walked back to the truck, the bills folded in my pocket, the taste of lemonade still on my tongue. The fence post caught my eye as I pulled away, still leaning, but holding. For now. I pulled up to Sophia's house the next morning, a little before 3, the Ford's engine rattling like it always did after a night in the damp. The air had cooled, some clouds hanging low, the kind that promised rain but never delivered. I told myself I was just here for the work, the extra cash, maybe another glass of that lemonade. But as I grabbed my pruning shears and a fresh pair of gloves from the toolbox, I caught my reflection in the side mirror and smoothed down my hair without thinking. Stupid. The front door was already cracked open, a sliver of light spilling onto the porch. I knocked anyway out of habit. Sophia appeared almost immediately, wiping her hands on a flour-dusted apron tied over a faded blue t-shirt. Her hair was messier than yesterday's strands escaping the knot at the back of her neck, and there was a streak of white powder across one cheek. She looked human, not the calm, untouchable woman from the day before. "You're early," she said, but there was no edge to it, more like surprise. Traffic was light. I held up the shears. "Lavender." She stepped aside to let me in. "Kitchen first." I attempted bread. "It's a crime scene." I followed her through the house, catching whiffs of burnt dough and something yeasty. The kitchen was small but lived in blue tiles on the backsplash. A wooden table scarred from years of use. Jars of herbs lined up on the windowsill. On the counter sat a loaf that looked more like a brick than bread, its top cracked and sunken. "I followed the recipe," she said, poking it with a knife. It didn't budge mostly. I set my tools by the door and washed my hands at the sink. "Smells better than it looks." Liar. She sliced off a piece anyway, the knife scraping like it was cutting stone. She handed it over on a paper towel. "Taste tester required." I took a bite. It was dense, salty, with a weird aftertaste like she'd swapped baking soda for salt or something. I chewed slowly, trying not to make a face. Well, I swallowed. "Unique." She burst out laughing, the sound filling the room like sunlight. "That's code for terrible, I know." She took the rest of the loaf and dumped it in the trash unceremoniously. "My mom used to make bread every Sunday. I thought I'd try." Clearly, genetics skipped a generation. I leaned against the counter, watching her tie the trash bag with quick, efficient movements. Why now? She paused, hands still on the knot. The house has been quiet since she passed. I figured noise might help, even bad bread noise. I nodded, not sure what to say. Grief wasn't something I knew how to fix with tools. She seemed to sense it, waved a hand like brushing it away. Anyway, Lavender's out back. I'll bring water. I headed outside the screen door, creaking behind me. The yard looked different in daylight. Less jungle, more potential. The roses I'd pruned were already perking up, and the trellis held steady with the wire brace. I found the lavender bed near the back fence, overgrown and woody. The purple blooms faded to gray. I started clipping, careful to cut just above the new growth. Sophia came out 10 minutes later with 2 glasses of iced tea. No lemon this time. She set one on the patio table and sat in the same wicker chair as yesterday, watching me work. The silence stretched comfortable again. I liked that she didn't fill it with chatter. "You always this quiet on jobs?" she asked eventually. "Depends. Some people want to talk your ear off. Others pay you to shut up and fix things." She smiled faintly. "I'm the second kind usually." I kept clipping. "This house your mom's?" She nodded. "Left it to me when she died last year. Cancer quick at least." She picked a thread on her apron. "I moved back from Atlanta after the divorce. Thought I'd sell it but couldn't." I glanced up. "Divorce? 2 years ago." He wasn't a bad guy. Just tired. We both were. No kids, no drama, just signed papers and split the records. She shrugged like it was nothing, but her fingers tightened on the glass. "He got the dog. I got the house." I didn't know what to say to that. I'd never been married, never even close. The closest I'd come to heartbreak was a girl in high school who moved away senior year. This felt heavier. "Sorry," I said finally. "Don't be. It's life." She took a sip of tea. "What about you? No girlfriend? Waiting for you to finish jobs?" I snorted. "Nah. Last one said I smelled like grass clippings and motor oil." Sophia laughed again, softer this time. "She's not wrong." I grinned, kept working. The lavender was coming along neater rows, the scent rising sharp and clean as I cut. By the time the bed was done, the sun was lower, casting long shadows across the yard. Sophia stood stretched. "Come inside when you're ready. I'll pay you." I packed up, wiped my hands on my jeans, and followed her in. She was at the kitchen table counting bills from a cookie jar shaped like a pig. She handed me a stack more than yesterday for the lavender, she said. "And the bread consultation." I took it, our fingers brushing again. This time she didn't pull away quick. "Fence post still needs replacing." I said, "I can pick one up tomorrow if you want." She tilted her head, considering tomorrow's Saturday. "I know." A pause. "Then lavender smells better already. Come back Monday." I might attempt cookies this time. I nodded, pocketing the cash. "Monday?" She walked me to the door, the burnt bread smell still lingering. At the threshold, she handed me a small paper bag. "Leftover from the crime scene for your lunch or the birds." I took it, felt the weight of the failed loaf inside. "Thanks." Driving home, the bag sat on the passenger seat like a promise. The fence could wait. The lavender was trimmed, but something told me Monday wouldn't be the last day. Saturday morning came with a breeze that actually felt like fall sneaking in. Cool enough to wear a long-sleeve shirt without sweating through it by noon. I told myself I wasn't coming back. The yard was clean. The lavender trimmed the extra cash already spent on gas and a new blade for my hedge trimmer. But when Sophia's text buzzed in at 9, picked up some pots and soil daisies. "If you're around it." I was already grabbing my keys. I pulled up just after 10 o'clock. The white fence still leaned, but the yard looked alive now, like it had shaken off a long sleep. Sophia was on the patio, kneeling by a stack of terracotta pots, a bag of potting soil ripped open beside her. She wore cut-off jeans and an old Vanderbilt t-shirt, hair in a messy ponytail, dirt already smudged on one knee. 2 pairs of gardening gloves lay on the table, one small, one large, like she'd planned for company. "Morning," I said, stepping through the gate. She looked up, shielding her eyes from the sun. "Thought you might ghost me." Considered it, but Daisy sounded serious. She smiled real this time, not the polite version, and handed me the larger gloves. They're stubborn, need deep holes. Figured you'd have the muscle. I pulled on the gloves, knelt beside her. The daisies were in plastic trays, roots tangled, and ready. We worked in quiet rhythm. I dug. She placed the plant's tamped soil around the stems. The earth was soft from yesterday's dew, giving way easy under the trowel. Bees hummed around the lavender-eyed, trimmed the scent mixing with fresh dirt and something floral from Sophia's shampoo. Halfway through the third pot, I misjudged the depth. The towel slipped, flinging a clump of soil onto her arm. It splattered across the white sleeve of her t-shirt, dark against the fabric. Sorry. She looked down then at me. Instead of brushing it off, she scooped a handful of loose dirt from the bag and smeared a streak across my cheek. There even I froze for a second, dirt cool on my skin. Then I laughed. Couldn't help it. She did too. The sound bright and surprised like she hadn't expected it from herself. We looked ridiculous. Two grown people kneeling in the grass, faces stray like kids after a mud fight. You know, she said, wiping her hands on her jeans and leaving more streaks. I haven't done anything this dumb since college. Planting daisies. Getting dirty on purpose. She flicked another pinch of soil at my shirt. It stuck to the fabric. Feels good. I retaliated with a light pat of dirt on her forearm. She gasped in mock outrage, then grabbed the hose from the spigot and threatened to spray. I raised my hands and surrendered. Truce. Truce. She set the hose down, but her eyes stayed playful. For now. We finished the pot 6 and all lined up along the back fence where the sun hit strongest. The daisies looked small against the leaning pickets, but hopeful like they belonged there. Sophia stood brushed off her knees. Fence can stay broken a little longer, I think. I glanced out at the rotted post, the sagging rails. It's not going anywhere fast. Good. She peeled off her gloves, tossed them onto the table. Want tea or are you too dirty for the house? I looked down at myself. Shirt-streaked jeans, caked face, probably a mess. I'll risk it. Inside, she poured iced tea into mason jars, added a sprig of mint from a pot on the windowsill. We sat at the kitchen table, the failed breadloaf long gone, but the faint yeasty smell lingering. She kicked off her shoes, tucked one foot under her. You don't have to keep coming up with jobs, you know, I said. She sipped her tea. I know, a pause. The kind that wasn't awkward anymore. Then why the daisies? She set her glass down, traced the condensation ring with her finger. Because the yard was starting to feel like mine again, and she shrugged. I like the company. I didn't push, just drank my tea and watched dust motes float in the sunlight slanting through the window. The clock on the wall ticked loud in the quiet. When I left an hour later, the daisies were watered. The gloves hung to dry on the porch rail. Sophia walked me to the gate. Monday? She asked. Monday? She nodded, then surprised me. Reached out and brushed a remaining smudge of dirt from my cheek with her thumb. Her touch lingered half a second. Drive safe, Ethan. I got in the truck, the engine turning over on the first try for once. As I pulled away, I caught her in the rear view standing by the gate, one hand raised in a small wave, the other tucked into her pocket. The daisies glowed yellow against the white fence. The fence could wait. Everything else was starting to feel less broken. Monday rolled in with a sky the color of wet concrete. I was halfway through a sandwich at the diner on Maple Street when my phone lit up. No name, just the number from the ad. The message was short. Mind if I borrow a shoulder this afternoon? I stared at the screen longer than I should have. The waitress refilled my coffee without asking. I paid, left a tip, and drove the familiar route to Sophia's house. Rain started as I turned onto her street, thin at first, then heavy drumming on the truck's roof like it had something to prove. I parked under the dripping oak in her driveway and jogged to the porch. The door opened before I knocked. Sophia stood there in an oversized gray sweater, sleeves pushed up, hair damp at the ends. Her eyes were red-rimmed but dry. She didn't smile. Hi. Hey. I stepped inside. Water dripping from my jacket onto the mat. Bad timing. No. Perfect. Actually, she closed the door, leaned against it for a second. It's the anniversary, Mom. I thought I had it handled. I hung my jacket on the hook by the door. The house smelled like chamomile and rain. She led me to the back porch, screened, and wicker furniture faded from years of sun. A single mug sat on the side table, tea gone cold. She curled into the corner of the couch, knees pulled to her chest. I keep replaying the last day, she said, a voice slow. She was in the garden, said the roses needed deadheading. I told her I'd do it later. Later never came. I sat on the opposite end, close enough to reach, but not crowding. Rain hammered the tin roof overhead, steady and loud. You can't deadhead grief, I said. It grows back crooked. She huffed a laugh that wasn't really a laugh. Poetic for a guy who smells like mower gas. Occupational hazard. Silence settled thick but not heavy. She uncurled one leg, let her foot rest on the cushion between us. I fixed the fence post yesterday by myself. Thought it would help. Didn't. I glanced out at the yard. The new post stood straight white paint, still wet. The old one lay in the grass like a broken bone. Sometimes fixing one thing just shows you how much else is cracked. She turned her head, looked at me fully. When did you get wise? Somewhere between changing Mrs. Delane's oil and listening to her tell me about her cat's arthritis. Sophia smiled, small, tired, real. Then her face crumpled. Not into sobs, just a slow collapse. She leaned sideways until her temple rested against my upper arm. I didn't move, didn't speak. Just let her weight settle. Minutes passed. The rain eased to a drizzle. Her breathing evened out. Finally, she whispered, I hate crying in front of people. I'm not people. I'm the guy who got dirt on your shirt. She laughed once, muffled against my sleeve. You're still wearing it, by the way. I looked down, faint brown streak on the shoulder. Battle scar. She sat up, wiped under her eyes with the sleeve of her sweater. Stay for coffee? I make a decent pot, unlike bread. Deal. We moved inside. She brewed coffee strong and black, handed me a mug that said, World's okayest mom. A joke, I guess, since there were no kids. We stood at the kitchen counter, steam curling between us. I used to think if I kept busy enough, the quiet wouldn't catch me. She said, Turns out quiet's faster. I sipped. Quiet's not the enemy. It's the part that lets you hear what matters. She studied me over the rim of her mug. You always this calm. Only when I'm not covered in poison ivy. Another smile. She set her mug down, reached past me to open a drawer, pulled out an old Polaroid. A woman in the garden. Same eyes, same mouth, younger, holding a basket of roses. That's her. Last summer, I took the photo. The woman looked happy, tired, alive. She'd like the daisies. Sophia nodded. She would. Thunder rumbled distant. She glanced at the window. Storms moving on. I handed the photo back. Our fingers brushed longer this time. Neither of us pulled away. Thank you, she said, for not trying to fix me. I shrugged. Some things aren't broken, just bent. She looked at me a beat longer, than reached for the umbrella by the door. The one she'd given me last time. For the walk back or for next time it rains. I took a handle, still warm from her hand. Next time. Driving home, the rain had stopped. The new fence post gleamed wet in my rear view. The umbrella sat on the passenger seat like a promise. I didn't know what we were fixing, but for the first time I wasn't in a hurry to finish the job. The following Friday, I showed up at Sophia just after 7. A cheap bottle of red wine in one hand and the porch light I'd made from scrap cedar in the other. The air was crisp, the kind of evening where the sky turns lavender before it goes dark. I'd spent 2 nights in the garage sanding the wood, smooth wiring a simple bulb socket staining the color of the fence posts. It wasn't fancy, but it was solid, like the new post she'd replaced herself. She opened the door in a soft green dress, barefoot, hair down for the first time. The house smelled like garlic and tomatoes simmering on the stove. Jazz drifted from a small speaker on the counter. Something slow with a saxophone that made the kitchen feel bigger. You're early, she said, but her smile said she didn't mind. Tfik was light. I held up the light. Brought this for the porch so you can sit out there without the harsh overhead. She took it, turned it over in her hands. You made this scrap from a deck job. Figured it fit. She set it on the table, then took the wine. Pasta's almost ready. Sit. I sat at the small round table already set with 2 plates, mismatched forks, cloth napkins folded like she'd tried. She poured the wine generous glasses, then stirred the pot. The sauce bubbled rich and red. She plated it spaghetti twisted high Parmesan grated fresh, a sprinkle of basil from the windowsill pot. We ate in the quiet hum of the music. The pasta was perfect, not al dente, not mush, just right. She caught me noticing. Recipe for Mom's old cookbook. 3rd try this week. 3rd time's the charm. She laughed softly, or I finally stopped overthinking. We talked easy stuff at first. Her latest editing project, a romance novel with too many metaphors. My week, a roof repair that turned into replacing half the shingles a kid who paid me in Pokemon cards. The wine loosened the edges. When the plates were empty, she refilled our glasses and leaned back. Autumn leaves came on slow, melancholy, perfect. She closed her eyes for the first few notes, then opened them and looked at me. If I were 10 years younger, she said, I'd ask you to dance. I didn't think, just stood, pushed my chair back, and held out my hand. She stared for a second like she hadn't expected me to call the bluff, then took it. Her palm was warm, calloused from the garden. We moved into the living room, the floorboards creaking under our feet. No real space, just enough between the couch and the bookshelf. I put one hand on her waist, the other holding hers. She rested her free hand on my shoulder. We swayed slow, offbeat, no steps. Her head came to rest against my chest hair, tickling my chin. I could feel her heartbeat steady and close. The song played on. Neither of us spoke. When it ended, the next track started something upbeat, but we kept the same rhythm slower. Her fingers tightened on my shoulder. I don't know what this is, she whispered. Me neither. I pulled back just enough to see her face. But I'm not stopping. She smiled small real good. We danced through 2 more songs, the room growing darker as the sun dipped. When the music paused between tracks, she stepped away but didn't let go of my hand. Come see the light. We went out to the porch. I'd hung it earlier while she finished the sauce. A simple hook screwed into the beam. The cedar glowing warm under the bulb. It cast a soft circle over the wicker chairs. The daisies in their pots. The fence still leaning but holding. Sophia flipped the switch. The light came on steady. No flicker. She stared at it, then at me. You don't know when to quit, do you? Neither do you. She laughed full this time, head back. Then she did something I didn't expect. Stepped close, wrapped her arms around my waist, and rested her head against my chest again. Not dancing now, just holding. I held back one hand on her back, the other in her hair. The porch light hummed softly. Cricket started up in the yard. The fence post gleamed new in the glow. Somewhere inside the speaker shuffled to another slow song, but we didn't move. After a while, she pulled back, looked up. Stay for coffee. Already planning on it. She smiled and took my hand and led me inside. The door stayed open behind us, the light spilling out onto the grass. The fence could wait. The door wouldn't close tonight, and for the first time in a long time, neither of us was in a hurry to fix anything. We just let it be.